EU politicians debating Brexit this morning in Strasbourg. It follows Boris Johnson's meeting with the EU Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker in Luxembourg on Monday. Let's reflect on some of what's happening at the moment. From Strasbourg, joining us now, the Brexit Party leader, Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, very good morning to you. What did you make of the analogy that was made in the Chamber this morning, comparing the prorogation of Westminster, the Parliament at Westminster, with what happens behind the Iron Curtain in the old Soviet state?
Well, utterly ludicrous, and particularly because it was made by Mr Verhofstadt, who this very week addressed the Liberal Democrat conference in Bournemouth and said that the European Union would become an empire. I thought it was a bit rich coming from him.
What did you make of what happened in Luxembourg earlier this week? The Luxembourg leader empty lecturning our Prime Minister. We were just talking to a sketch writer who said there was a fantastic opportunity for the Prime Minister actually to talk above the hecklers, take the hecklers on. He suggested it's the sort of thing you would have done, that other leaders might have done as well. Was he for it?
Well, I think he didn't want to be embarrassed. It wasn't in the United Kingdom. He was supposed to be a guest. I would have thought Boris would have been very angry at the Luxembourg Prime Minister. I mean, why would you set a podium up within yards of a big, noisy protest, particularly when Stephen Barclay had done a press conference that day from inside the building? So Boris made his choice. I might have done it differently, but Boris made his choice. The real point here is not whether Boris attended or not. It is the way in which the Luxembourg Prime Minister openly mocked, physically mocked the podium next to him, and in doing so, mocked our country. I thought the whole thing was disgusting.
You talk about Boris's choices. He may face a choice depending on how the Supreme Court rules this week or early next week, to prorogue Parliament again a second time. How would you feel about that?
I don't think he'll do that. And, I think really the word prorogation has been misused. What he's done here is to call a Queen's speech a very normal thing. This has been one of the longest running parliaments for hundreds of years. The idea that he would prorogue Parliament over the end of the 31st of October, I don't think he'll do that. And I don't think his own party would allow him to do that. I think what is more significant is what is going on with the negotiations around the backstop. Today we've been hearing here in Strasbourg from Messrs Juncker and Barnier, they have no emotional attachment as such to the backstop. They're happy to look at alternative arrangements. It's a very, very different kind of language to what we were seeing before the summer recess. And I think we're potentially very close to a deal being done on the 17th of October between Boris Johnson and Monsieur Barnier.
Are you crossing your fingers and hoping it does, but partly for party political advantage, that it really keeps your party in business at that stage?
Well, forget party advantage. I'd rather not have to be here at all. I'm doing this because I want Brexit delivered. And here's my problem. Even without the backstop, this new European treaty, because that's what it is the worst deal in history. And it leaves us completely open and at the mercy of the EU institutions in terms of any future arrangement. And I think Michel Barnier let the cat out of the bag this morning when he said that he hoped, once this was passed, that any future arrangement would be based on the customs union. Everything in the treaty, everything in the political declaration is designed to keep us inside that customs union. And if that's where we finish up, then Brexit will not have been worth it.
It's 5 years today since the Scottish independence referendum. I was just talking to a couple of the politicians who are involved in it, and we ran out of time before I could ask them a question I wanted to put to them, which is this idea of how you get over the rancour. I mean, there's a sense in which the Scottish Indie Ref was a forerunner in terms of the deepness of the depth of the divisions that were created in families and communities and the rivalries. How do we get over the Brexit rancour that's been created in our nation?
By dismissing the fear element. If you really look what percentage of the United Kingdom actually want European anthems, European flags, Mr. Verhofstadt's empire. It's lower than 15%. A lot of other people who've gone along with the Remain side have done so because of the constant economic fear that is being pumped out by career politicians, backed up by some of the giant multinationals who, of course, love the single market. And I think the way we get over it is to get Brexit done and, 12, 18 months down the road, when we're doing much better comparatively than the rest of Europe, we'll unify.
OK. Nigel Farage, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.